All right, getting to our last topic before we jump into Friendly Feud. Norway's trillion-dollar man believes America's attitude towards failure is helping propel the nation ahead of its European counterparts, saying that Americans work harder than Europeans, where workers may have a better work-life balance but aren't as ambitious. Nikolai Tangen leads Nordic Behemoth, it's a weird name, Behemoth, Norge's Bank Investment Management, which governs the revenue earned by Norway's oil and gas resources with the aim of ensuring its benefits are distributed fairly between current and future Norwegian generations. Under his leadership since 2020 and over the past decade, $1.6 trillion in his fund has invested more and more heavily in the United States instead of its closer neighbors in Europe. And it's no coincidence. America's performance, particularly in innovation, is worrisome in contrast to Europe. Tangen told the Financial Times, he furthered that it goes deeper than just the difference between these two countries on a general level of ambition. We're not very ambitious. I should be careful about talking about work-life balance, but Americans just work harder. Data suggests that he's right, but only by a fine margin. According to the European Union, in 2022, the average work week of people between the ages of 22 and 65 was 37 and a half hours. The longest working weeks were recorded in Greece at 41 hours and Poland at 40 hours. By contrast, the Netherlands had the shortest work week of 33 hours, followed by Germany, which is like the highest end of engineering in the world, 35 hours. Meanwhile, the same data from the International Labor Organization suggests that Americans on average work 38 hours. So, keeping that all in mind, the UK has a statutory requirement that has entitled staff to 28 paid days leave. America doesn't. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average employee who is in their first year of service takes 8 PTO days. So the interesting balance here is we don't require it, but we're still getting it at a fair rate in comparison. And there's a little bit more, but I'm gonna flip it to you to at least start breaking it down.
Oh, this one's a loaded one. Whenever I see these types of statistics, I always have to wonder a couple different things. So I like to bring up two different examples. So let's like the Scandinavian countries. They're very not very diverse, indiverse, whatever the opposite of that is. They culturally are pretty much all going the same way. It's almost more akin to like a nice suburb in an area where everyone, like a nice school district, everyone kind of understands the rules of the game and kind of understands how they want to live life, and that's just their culture. So is it necessarily looked well, if you work a bunch, like, yeah, that's great and wonderful. We're not exactly, we don't celebrate you for that. Unlike here, where we do celebrate quite a bit, quite a bit of like working hard. It's some people's entire personality is how many hours they work on their job, whether they're good at it or not. That's definitely one of the things that some people pride themselves on here. And I want to go all the way to our friends over, my friends over in Japan. They work a ton, like an absolute ton, because the country will shame you into not working. There's this whole diatribe with the older managerial folks will stay long because their older managerial folks stay long, and it just keeps going down the chain where no one's allowed to leave until like the upper like tippy top guy leaves. Then it goes down the slow chain. So like, are they actually getting more done when you're quote unquote working, or you're just staying in the office for a while, or you're just twiddling your thumbs over in a construction site? Some of these productivity numbers are just a little bit skewed just because we're such a big country. We got a lot of people in comparison to some of these European countries who don't quite have, we're the size of maybe one or two states, and that's about it. So these numbers I always take with a bit of grain of salt on like full other numbers, but there definitely is something to say that the American work culture is more work focused than most of the European countries.
Well, and it's interesting. These are the countries that we point to for our, anecdotal statistics, right? Their work week, their parental leave, like, fathers get to take off X amount of days here. And we point to small little countries, and most of the dialogues were willing to acknowledge that they get away with it because they're a small country. Yep. And if we had such small communities, we'd be able to, use social welfare programs at the rate that they do. But I want to come back to kind of this gentleman who's in charge of really much the centerpiece of Norway's financial economy.
Yeah.
He's looking at the world saying, we need to be more like them. They work the hardest. And if you are going to point to, Poland, because they have the shortest work week, or they have, parental days off that you wish you had. Also, like, where's their innovation? I'm waiting for them on the moon. Where are they at? There's so many things that, like, when I went to Dubai and we're sitting there and, we spent a week, we're meeting with CEOs of billion-dollar businesses. They're trying to rebuild an economy where oil is leaving. And you want to ask, like, what do they have beyond just a nice sky rise?
Yeah.
Because between all the sky rises is just desert. It's nothing. And when you sit back, and there was a night we're sitting back, he's smoking hookah, we're looking at the buildings, and he goes, yeah. Okay, so they built a cool building that twists. Do you see beyond it? The moon? We've been to the moon. And so if you could point to any of those countries and they've been a centerpiece in the evolution of medicine, or the iPhone in your pocket, or the internet itself, they just said, thank you, we'll benefit. So there's something to the fruits of competition. Now, I brought this up, on the podcast itself. I was talking to this gentleman who's an economist, and he really couldn't answer the question for me either. When you build you build an entire system, a game, okay, the name of the game is Monopoly. We're playing capitalism. What's interesting is the guy who built or created the game Monopoly literally created it to prove that if you perform capitalism to its entirety, it always ends with one person owning everything. Yeah. That was the whole purpose of the game Monopoly. And that's kind of the game we're playing. Okay, so you created this game. All right, guys, we're dishing out the money, and the name of the game is Monopoly. And then you look at somebody like Jeff Bezos, and they're like, whoa, you're winning way too much. Dial it back. It's like, wait, you don't get all the benefits, all the fruits of the society that has this competition, that creates this evolution in your technology, in your medicine, in your social, your culture. And then damn it for its creation. So the admission here is you got to find the perfect balance, something that's a little bit social welfare that brings that back, keeps a balance, so we don't just end up with a Monopoly game where one guy owns the whole board. But at the same time, we got to agree, when you start creating systems that don't have that competition, like even a capitalistic European country, when you start opening the door to complacency, human nature is they're going to fall into it immediately. Now, I'm going to flip it to the Pickle Gallery. Silent, what do you think?
I think, honestly, at the end of the day, like, it's one of those things, like you said, where it's just a big cultural difference, because in Europe, the pace over there is just slower, right? It's just the way they work, the way they collaborate with each other, the way they try to problem solve. It's just not as like quick, and hustle and grind culture is not really much of a thing over there. At least, when I went there, that's what I observed too. So I'm not really surprised that the CEO said that Americans are way more productive than Europeans, because yes, the numbers may show that, like, we slightly are more productive, but I would say, or I would argue, that this hustle culture that we have here in North America, specifically in the US, it's basically what's fueled, like, modern, like you said, modern inventions that changed people's lives, like the iPhone, like, like going to the moon, like the internet, like BlackBerry recently from Canada. It's probably our only innovation since Shopify, and things like that, right? Like things where we kind of have like the Silicon Valley environments here, the little pockets of like tech and innovation here that always are changing the world via software or hardware or a combination of both. Whereas Europe doesn't really have that much of a, I guess, let's change the world culture. It's more so, let's just do this when we do this. We'll get to it when we get to it. Not so much as, oh my God, time is passing by. Come on, guys, let's go. Samsung's beating us. We got to crank out the new iPhone, And I think it's just basically goes down to the culture in Europe is very different in each European country, and just on the continent overall, versus on the continent, like between Canada, US, and even I would say Mexico. We just have a hustle and grind culture here that they just don't have in Europe.
I can appreciate that. Yo, Mr. Love, what are your thoughts on this?
Love, all love. But like, why you just focus? Why you just do a broader study? Because if you look in the Asian community, like, and they put in work for cheaper, and that ain't love. America is the culture. America is built off hard work. People come here, grind for their families, send back home. That's what America is known for. But other than you should have looked at Asia. We working over here. We spreading love. Look in Asia and compare yourself to the Asians because they breaking it back too.
Facts. So I want to flip one thing to you, David,
Okay.
and to the crew in the convo. It goes a little further. So Mr. Tangent here also kind of has a comment about CEOs. Despite admiring the work ethic of staffers in the U.S., Tangent has made it clear he doesn't agree with the extreme pay packages handed to execs. Last year, he told Fortune that CEOs who earn more than, say, $20 million a year are enriching themselves on our behalf, and it's daylight robbery. Now, here's what's convenient. He doesn't make over 20 million a year. So it's like, if you were being given a $40 million package and you gave 20 million back, man, you're an admiral guy and you get to have this dialogue. But we also know you're a human being. And once you're given a $40 million package, you're going to go, well, the CEOs that take a $60 million package are just pigs. So you really only got something to say about it because you yourself are not getting a package that large. And let's say in the grand scheme of folks making $60,000 and can't find comfort, you're also making way too much. We should suck from the rich. You're the rich. So it's just convenient that he has like the comment he has. And it comes back to the point I was making before. It's like, but that's also the competition that makes it worth it. I guarantee the companies he's pointing at and is going, that payout package is too high. I guarantee their annual budget, salary, profit margin, triple what you're making. So, like, one, that's why tariffs, all the conversations about tariffs, that's why that has such an implication, why it has such an effect. We are the centerpiece of your economy. You want to work with us. So, part of this is leveraging, and I want to emphasize, take a look at why these things why we're able to leverage it, because there is financial power here. So while he has the comment about our packages being higher, I wouldn't be surprised if the percentage of what they're taking profit-wise is still smaller than the profit margin you're sucking from your company. It's just that our profit margins are so much higher.
No, I don't I don't necessarily disagree on the, if you kind of look at it from space here, or as tall as me, I think where the issues come from is the incentive structure of how these CEOs get paid. 'Cause it's not just like Roger Goodell, who makes $50 million a year working for the NFL as the CEO, the spokesperson, what have you. That's great. That's wonderful. He's probably worth that. The NFL is constantly in the news and the media, so I don't necessarily mind that. However, I think most of the CEOs that we could probably point to that are just awful have the incentive structure as well. Your pay is based on the stock price. So I'm going to do everything in my power to juice the stock price, like the Warner Brothers CEO who's selling off things, not releasing movies. He's doing all these shenanigans just so stock prices can look all right, so then he can get his packages, because that's just the incentive structure. If it was just $10 million, do the best job, we'll evaluate you at the end of the year, and it's based on 5 or 6 different metrics, not just stock price, but all sorts of different brand evaluations, we probably see a lot different behavior out of these CEOs, but it's all just incentive based where they're coming from. So I don't necessarily mind. You can make $1 billion a year as a CEO as long as you're worth that. But if you're stepping on people along the way, or just tanking the brand, tanking everything that people love about whatever's going on in this company, you're not worth it. You're just juicing your own greed. But there is, also, if you're a shareholder, all I care is about the stock price.
Right.
I care about dividends, stock price. That's it. I don't care how the employees feel. I don't care about brand value because I can just sell this bitch and go move on my way. So there's a little bit of A and there's a little bit of B with some of these CEOs. I think probably to get a better example is to look at like private corporation CEOs and see how they're running things. I think their incentive structure is a lot different versus some of these these actual multinational corporations.
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. Let's start landing this plane because I got a couple thoughts myself. First, Silent, can you tell us what are your rapping thoughts?
I think at the end of the day, all of the differences between the continents will show. Time will tell which one is going to be more productive and more innovative, because we can all like observe or say certain things, but at the end of the day, the results are what will speak for the respective continents and countries, right?
So let me ask you this, okay? You're somebody in Canada. You've got an outside perspective. I'd be curious of like addressing it head on, right? Would you prefer, I mean, you've got universal health care, but you also can't get health care when you need it in an emergency. So there's this balance of, well, there's a more welcoming, happy, loving society, but on the flip side, the innovation may not be there, but it's nowhere near as comfortable. So kind of what are your thoughts on that dynamic? What is your preference? I mean, part of my rapping thought is going to get to a point where this isn't a place where people are wishing they weren't. Like everybody's dying to get here, but we're telling you it's hard work. So why is everyone still dying to get here? Yeah. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that dynamic where it isn't comfortable, but man, the fruits are juicy?
I think that's the big misconception that people have. They think that, money's growing on trees in the US, but like you said, it's extremely difficult to make it in the US, like whether you want to start your own company or whether you want to work for somebody else. It's not going to be a cakewalk like people think it is. But some people would actually just rather that, right? Like there's a lot of people that literally will try to kill themselves just to work at McDonald's and just to be in the US. There's a lot of people, like millions of people that actually do that. Or to work at a farm in Southern California or something like that. Like it's one of those things where a lot of people just want to be here because it's like much safer than where they're coming from. It's much more stable. The currency is the global reserve currency. So when they convert it back to their home currency, it's worth a lot more. So I would say, like, from an outside perspective, the best thing about coming to the US is when you do make it, the system is built in such a way that you are going to be the top benefiter of this system. That's why a lot of people want to try to come here to try to get really rich, because when you're really rich, this system works really well for you. And I think that's what a lot of people want to try to come to the US or to Canada to try, is to try to become really rich and try to, actually make it. But like you said, it's not easy. It's very hard. Millions of people are trying to become rich here. So the question you want to ask yourself is, what makes me different from everybody else that's trying to come in here? And what makes me part of the bigger picture? Like, how can I join the big innovators, the Apples, the Googles, the FANG, the Silicon Valley, the big companies that are actually the SpaceX that are changing the world? And I think at the end of the day, it all boils down to one thing. Like, how hard or how badly are you willing to work for it? And do you have the right mindset to fit into that kind of continuous nonstop work? We're going to keep doing this until we get it done. And that's not for everybody, It's really not.
That's why I'm going to trample over your back and you're not allowed to ask for any of it. Ricky, Dr. Daddy Love, what are your thoughts?
Daddy Love.
It goes to what Silent said. When people come to America, right? And maybe this goes into the study, whatever he's showing, like Americans work a lot. There's a lot of foreigners here. They put in the hours, maybe working 2-3 jobs. It's not for them. It's for their offspring. So they don't have to do the 2-3 job. They can be relaxed, go to college, and be the innovators and help America overall. So it's not everybody, because the younger generation that's going to come up from the hardworking parent is going to see that they don't want to put in all them hours, going to try to better themselves in life to get, better pay with less hours. So America is for the working hard, it's for the opportunity. if you come here, you got to bust your ass. It ain't for the easy. When I thought of America, I thought it was gold bricks, but nope. You gotta come here and bust your ass to get your own gold to make your brick road. That's love.
It's those red lights, man. That's love.
Hey, I gotta
That's
set the
love.
mood, man. You know, shining, glistening.
It's the only reason. It's the only way people are accepting that lube. Now, my rapid thought is going to be this: incentives, right? People talking about incentives. You don't have to be here, and people want to be here. So here's the thing: if the complaint is we're not letting enough people in, then maybe we need to start having a real conversation about who should want to come here. Like, here's the thing: as Silent Destroyer was given his breakdown. I mean, it's not made for everybody. Here's the sad part is we've got complacent, lazy, comfortable people that want the fruits of all the people around them. I want the flashy cars. I want the house. I want the girls. I want the clubs. But I really don't want to do any of the things to get it. So, okay, you're going to the garden. You're going to the place of all the fruits. Unfortunately, the fruits just aren't free for the picking. Here's the rule, social contract. You're welcome to come to our garden. You also have to plant in the garden. So if you come here and you start sprouting out juicy fruits, you get to have like a little piglet. Help yourself to everything our garden has to offer. On the flip side, if you're not planting anything and you're not enriching the garden at all, we waved you, and there's a harsh truth here. There's a safety net for the lazy folks of Europe. It's if you don't want to, we'll get you to the finish line. It may take you 3 weeks to get into a doctor with your broken leg, but we'll get you there, and that's kind of the world you're going to be in. Going back to the point I wanted to make, is Silent was talking about that. I'm sitting there going, what would I really like? And maybe it's because I've blossomed and grown in this intense environment. And now, like, I know that I have a meeting with the mayors tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. And yet I got to get this episode done for tomorrow morning. I put it off. There's just too much. I will work till the wee hours, 3, 4 a.m. and Silent. I wouldn't have it any other way. There's probably a point in my life at 50 years old where it's gone, you missed out on all that sleep. It was futile. Nobody even knows your name. And yet I would still say 10 times over, if I put in all of that work somewhere else, I still see none of the fruits. So this is the rat race. I'm trained and bred now to run. And I couldn't imagine any other community beyond one that has me running full capacity. That way, when I am throwing my own white party and we've got lubes galore, it's because I earned it. And I put all of the efforts into it. And that's the cheese that keeps this rat running. I don't know. I think this is a beautiful place that has a lot of problems, but everywhere else has problems. This is the only place where we get to see problems and actually work to changing them and fixing them. Everywhere else is like, man, I really don't like that I don't have food, Venezuela. And they're like, either leave or fight over a chicken bone. That's what we got for you. And the dictator that runs the joint is not going away. So the beauty here is, at least where I see problems, I can be a part of the change that I want to see. And on the flip side, this is where all the fruits are. And we just need to start having a real dialogue about how you obtain those fruits. And it isn't just for signing up or being born on this land. It's that you planted something in my garden and we all get the benefits of the fruits. Rapid thoughts.
Oof, all right, a lot to follow up on that one. But I think there is, I'm going to take it back to the other point here, where I think different cultures definitely do aspire different things as far as like the working relationships between the people in the countries. I still think there's something to be said that when we think about Europe as a whole, we always seem to pick and choose what the best parts of. Well, I really like the way Denmark does this, or I really like the way Germany does that, and it's never taken as a whole. We assume just America's as a whole, but obviously there's different states that do different things. Like the working the working culture in like Florida, Georgia is a little bit different than it is in New York or there's just a bit of a different dynamic with these things. So it's not all just taken as a specific whole. We are the sum of our parts. However, it's those parts that are a little bit different than just necessarily. We're not just one entity here. So I think there is definitely something to be said too about the way companies and those with the means are able to dictate the terms of engagement when it comes to kind of your working life. Because there's certain, I think there's certain jobs you don't need to be there as long as you have to be, or there's certain jobs I can do this from home. We don't need to do this. I can still be just as productive, just as focused, and just as good at my house or working 5 less hours than I would be in something else. And I think that's just a bit of a dialogue we have to see in ourselves. It cuts both ways. We're very productive, but at the same time, it can lead to depression or just, being unfulfilled. And we see a lot of that right now.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Rethink Tank Live. Join us every Tuesday at 7 p.m. streaming across the platforms on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, Facebook, LinkedIn, and TikTok. We do our best to promote user engagement, and we want you involved. So be sure to bring your perspective live so we can get you in the dialogue. See you then.